Hey everybody, I'm Dinosaurs, and this is Dinosaurs, the show where we combine two nerdy things together into a very nerdy sandwich and hope that it tastes good. On that note, I should mention that while I love making these custom cards, I am very aware that this is not normal Magic the Gathering content. So if this is something that you like, please let me know in the comments below the video. Also, like and subscribe! You know, if there was one franchise I was highly anticipating for a Magic the Gathering crossover, it was Monster Hunter. I've been playing since Monster Hunter Tri on the Wii, and after the success of Monster Hunter World a couple years back, as well as Magic the Gathering's partnership with another Capcom franchise, Street Fighter, I figured Monster Hunter was just an inevitability. So naturally, when that message appeared at the top of the Secret Lair website, I was hype. At this point, however, I think everyone is painfully aware of the disastrous attempt at a crossover that Wizards of the Coast farted out a couple of months ago. And the subsequent pullback of the Secret Lair. The first time that's ever happened, in fact. Which is funny because when I heard that the Secret Lair was getting undone, my first assumption was that it was because of the horrible card choices, the lack of flavor, and the lack of mechanically unique cards. Little did I know, however, the cards they chose had abysmal value, and they even misspelled one of the cards. Those 2 points have been discussed at length, however, so you can go watch the Professor's video or any of the other ones of people talking about that. On the subject of some of the choices they made for the monsters, it just feels like what they did with the SpongeBob Secret Lair, where they found a commander whose creature type was sort of similar to what the source material was referencing, and then just slapped the art on that, with no real thought put in otherwise. I'm not even sure if every monster on this list has a good fit for Monster Hunter creatures that already exist, which is why I'm sad they didn't do mechanically unique cards like they did with Sonic. I will say, though, they nailed Rathalos. However, Zinogre is not Golgari. In fact, up until this Secret Lair was announced, whenever you Googled Zinogre MTG card, you would find people who had made their own version of Zinogre and just stuck Zinogre on Calamax. The reason they didn't make Zinogre Calamax, however, is because they made Brachydios Calamax, which doesn't feel like it fits at all, especially considering Calamax literally has lightning coming off of their back in the art. They also just made Gormagala Razakath, I guess because it's a mono black legendary with flying? That's your only criteria, why not just go with Skithiryx or Hirobi? And I know what you're thinking, Mankey, that's a terrible idea. Remember Gary the Snail as Toxrill? Do you want that all over again? And I will explain why Skithiryx is a good fit for Gormagala a little bit later. Then we've got Lagiacrus, Lagiacrus, Lagiacruz, Lagiacrus.
It's a little embarrassing, but that one's one of my favorites, and I can't remember how to pronounce its name, so I'm hoping one of those is right.
For this one, it seems like they just saw something that was underwater and used that for the card. The effect isn't too bad, but it's not very flavorful, and I also don't think it's mono blue necessarily. Also, I didn't make custom cards for every single monster in the Secret Lair, so I do apologize if I missed your favorite, but if we keep doing these videos, maybe I can get it in a future one. First up is objectively the best monster from the entire franchise, Zinogre. There was a popularity poll done a couple of years ago by the community, and Zinogre was voted #1, so that's factually true, don't at me. Now, something important to mention that comes up in Monster Hunter games during a hunt while you're fighting a monster, in most cases, once you deal enough damage to the monster, it will become enraged, typically apparent once the monster roars, at which point it becomes more aggressive, and in some cases it even gains access to new attacks. So with that said, here is Zinogre Thunderous Usurper. I chose the name Thunderous Usurper because Zinogre weapons in the games are all called Usurpers X or Usurpers Y, and I wanted to try and have different names than the Secret Lair drop. For 3 green, blue, red, you get a 6/5 beast with Enrage. Whenever Zinogre is dealt damage, create a 1/1 red and green insect creature token with flying. X, red, 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 Monstrosity X,
As long as Zinogre is monstrous, it has trample and must be blocked if able. Now I know if you found this video and you're a fan of Monster Hunter and not Magic, nothing I just said makes sense. Basically, Enrage triggers whenever Zinogre is dealt damage. Monstrous is a one-time activation where Zinogre gets stronger and becomes monstrous and gains access to Trample, which is a keyword ability meaning your damage can trample through blockers to ensure that you're still hitting your opponent in most cases. It also must be blocked if able once it's monstrous to make sure it can get more Enrage triggers. Now, Magic players who don't play Monster Hunter, you're probably wondering how anything in this text box makes sense. But hear me out. In Monster Hunter, there are a couple of things about Zinogre that make it unique. One of which is that when Zinogre becomes enraged, it actually changes its physical form. Its spikes grow, its claws extend, and its back crackles with electricity. Hence the monstrous. Ordinarily, Enrage by itself would be a one-to-one comparison, but I thought because Zinogre augments its physical form, the monstrosity fits a little better. The reason Enrage is there on top of monstrosity, whereas I think for most monsters one or the other or neither would make more sense, is because Zinogre has another unique quality, only this one is even more specific. Whenever you knock Zinogre down during a hunt, if you have a bug net, you can actually run up to its back and catch Fulgur bugs, which are basically lightning bugs, but way more literal. And they love hanging out on Zinogre, which is how Zinogre is able to produce lightning. So that's why when the Zinogre card takes damage, you get insects, and Enrage feels like the best way to do that. Let me know if you can think of a better way to word this or a separate effect. Then the trample and forced block for monstrosity are referencing the changes after Zinogre in the game becomes enraged, usually gaining access to new abilities and attacks.
Just as a side note, the last time I played a Monster Hunter game with Lagiacrus in it, they didn't have voice acting.
Here is
Lagiacrus.
Terror of Moga Village. For 4 blue-red, you get a 5/5 Leviathan with Enrage. Whenever
Lagiacrus
is dealt damage, it deals 4 damage divided as you choose among any number of target creatures your opponents control. And whenever a creature dealt damage by
Lagiacrus
this turn becomes tapped, put a stun counter on it. Something specific about Monster Hunter that I wanted to show off with these cards is blights. Not that one, but that one is cool too. No, in Monster Hunter, the monsters will do elemental damage, which can result in you getting blighted. There's Dragon Blight, Fire Blight, Water Blight, Ice Blight, and Thunder Blight. Each one with a different debuff. If it wasn't already clear,
Lagiacrus
does lightning attacks against you while you're hunting it. So we're specifically referencing Thunderblight. Thunderblight has an interesting effect that takes into account the stun mechanic from the Monster Hunter games. Ordinarily, while you're hunting a monster, you have a percentage chance of being stunned, which can increase depending on how you are hit with an attack from a monster, and if you get multiple hits against you in a short amount of time. Thunderblight will actually increase the chances of you getting stunned. Thus, when you hunt
Lagiacrus,
aka deal it damage, it will zap you with its lightning attacks, and then give your creature Thunderblight, which will increase the chance of you getting stunned, which is why the stun counter is put on a creature that
Lagiacrus
deals damage to if it becomes tapped. Bingo bango bongo.
Lagiacrus
Doing Thunderblight in Magic the Gathering. That's why I designed Laggy the way I did. I should have just said Laggy this whole time. Now here we have the flagship monster of Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate. I'm saying Laggy is the flagship monster of Tri, but not 3 Ultimate/3G, because Laggy isn't on the box art. This is Brachydios, Explosive Wyvern. For 3 black, red, green, you get a 6/4 dinosaur beast with trample. Whenever Brachydios attacks, put a blast counter on up to 4 target creatures your opponents control. Then, each player sacrifices each creature they control with 3 or more blast counters on it, and loses life equal to the number of counters on those creatures, and Enrage Whenever this creature is dealt damage, proliferate.
I need you to know how hard it was to not make them slime counters. Because back in my day, Brachydios did slime damage and not blast damage, and that shit was busted as all hell. All we needed was some slime dual blades and we could take down the world. The reason they're not slime counters on the card, though, is because I didn't want the association to and synergy with the aforementioned Toxrill. You'll also notice the number 4 keeps coming up. That's because in Monster Hunter, you're only able to go on hunts with up to 4 players.
Now, as I said, Bracky has slime, even though it's called blast damage, its actual body produces slime, that it will attack you with. That slime will stick to your body, and if it's left alone, it will turn from green to yellow, then red, and then explode, taking out a chunk of your health. That's something I wanted to incorporate with Bracky's design, as it's basically just turning your opponent's creatures into bombs. Requiring 3 blast counters acts sort of like a pseudo timer, or at least that's the idea. Then Enrage increases the timer / slime on your opponent's creatures. That's because when Bracky becomes enraged in the game, it goes from effectively placing a timer on you to punching you with explosions! You get no timer. When it's enraged, you only get carded faster. I figured enrage you lose was a little extreme though, so instead it speeds up the process of your opponent's creatures exploding. I also made the choice to make it not restricted to blast counters, so that you can put more counters on your opponent's creatures, then blow them up and deal even more damage. The proliferate doesn't hurt either. Next up, we have the flagship monster from Monster Hunter 4, and one of the most annoying motherfuckers in Monster Hunter. It's Gore Magala Looming Virus. For 2 black, you get a 2/4 Dragon Spectre with flying. Whenever Gore Magala attacks, create a black aura enchantment token named Frenzy Virus, attached to another target creature. That token has Enchant Creature, and Enchanted Creature gets +2/+0 and is goaded. Whenever Enchanted Creature dies, its controller discards a card. And 3 black, Monstrosity 1. If this creature isn't monstrous, put a +1/+1 counter on it, and it becomes monstrous. And as long as Gore Magala is monstrous, it has First Strike. I know I alluded to it a lot earlier when I said Skithiryx would be a good fit for Gore Magala. That's because Gore Magala, rather famously, gives most things it encounters the sick, which is why I named it Looming Virus. To be more specific, a major plot point in Monster Hunter 4 is that monsters are being infected with something called the Frenzy Virus, which you find out is just this thing's cooties, which causes the things it infects to become stronger and more aggressive. However, monsters it infects will pass away within a day or 2 of infection, and hunters it infects will just lose some of their natural healing abilities for a short time. A main factor when a hunter gets infected with the Frenzy Virus, though, is that if you can deal enough damage to Gore Magala while you have the Frenzy Virus, the virus will go away and your natural healing won't be affected, and you even get a buff. The other thing I wanted to do was to have it be a specter. Its cloaked wings, nickname being the Dark Eclipse, and some of its attacks look like it's literally shooting shadows at you. Of course, that meant in the magic sense that it needed to discard somehow, which is how the discard on the aura came about. It's honestly not exactly where I would like it, but buffing something and goading it was the best one-to-one I could think of. And the Rani, which is another UB card from Doctor Who, does that. So I took that concept and ran with it. I was thinking about a version of this with Wither, but if you've ever fought a frenzied monster, you probably didn't remark on how it felt weaker than normal. Last but not least, we have a monster who's been here since 2004, when Monster Hunter was first released. It's probably the most iconic monster in the series, and is a flagship of the entire franchise. Heck, this guy was even a boss fight in Final Fantasy XIV. This is Rathalos, Scourge of the Skies. For 2 red, you get a 5/3 legendary creature dragon with flying, trample, haste, and whenever Rathalos enters the battlefield, up to 4 target creatures your opponents control can't block this turn. And for a red, Rathalos gets +1/+0 until end of turn. Yes, I gave it fire breathing. Why wouldn't I give it fire breathing? It does that a lot in the games. Something else about Monster Hunter I have yet to mention is that in most hunts, When you encounter the monster for the first time, before it starts attempting to fold your armor while you're wearing it, it will let out a roar, which will lock you into an animation of holding your ears, unless you have earplugs, which can sometimes even give the monster a free hit on you if it's quick enough. Something very deliberate I wanted to do as well was to keep his toughness at 3, because in the Monster Hunter games, Rathalos is famously weak to lightning. So I thought, what better way to illustrate that than to have him be boltable. So the magic card version of Rathalos I created has, when it enters/starts the hunt, it roars, causing 4 targets, the 4 hunters in a hunt, to hold their ears and not be able to block. Assuming they don't bolt the Wrath, you can also pump it using fire breathing if you have the extra mana. And since it has haste, swing in on the same turn.
And that's the final monster I have for this video. I certainly hope that all of you liked the designs I made as much as I liked making them for you. Here's hoping that Wizards of the Coast can put a lot more thought into their second attempt at the Secret Lair once it comes out later this year. I'm not sure if we'll get mechanically unique cards, but I think we can all agree Monster Hunter deserves better than Wizards' first attempt, and Magic deserves better than Wizards' first attempt. You would think that Secret Lairs, being the hill they're choosing to, and I can't emphasize this part enough, die on, they would put a little more thought and care into them. It doesn't make sense for consumers, and it doesn't make sense financially in the long run, but it seems that they're obsessed with capitulating to scalpers and treating their customers like pay pigs who will buy up any Secret Lair no matter how stupid. As we saw recently with the "it's all the same product just at different price points" Secret Lair. They're beyond hope at this point, and if you take one thing away from this video, let it be to proxy all of your Secret Lairs, so you don't have to keep dealing with this bullshit. Heck, I didn't even get into all the fuckery with the queue system. This is the second part of the video where I ask you to please engage with the algorithm. Comment below what you thought of the designs. Tell me if you like them. Tell me if you hate them. Tell me ones you want to see. Heck, you could just type your favorite monster in the comments. Let me know if you like the videos, and like and subscribe. And hit the bell if that's still a thing, or hype the video, or whatever the heck YouTube is pushing nowadays. Also, twitch.tv/DiceAndDinosaurs is where I stream sometimes, which I hope to do more of this year. My main social is Bluesky @DiceAndDinosaurs. Follow me there for more goofs and gaffs. But regardless of you doing any of that, I hope you have a great day, and I will see everybody on the next video. Goodbye!